In 2005, two Wisconsin brothers founded a silencer research and development company called Hearing Protection LLC. After escaping Hillary Clinton's dangerously mismanaged State Department security program, these brothers went full tilt into standing up their own firearms company. Today, still under the watchful eye of government regulatory agencies, they survive as entrepreneurs of fortune. If you have a problem, if you have shitty kit, and you're in desperate need of an upgrade, maybe you can buy Griffin Armament.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Dwell Time Podcast. Today we got a full panel, the cast of Own the Season TV. So we got Michelle, Art, and Brad. We're going to talk a little bit about the recent partnership we signed with them to get them suppressors for all their upcoming hunts and stuff like that, and kind of just talk about what they got going on and talk about the show and how it's all going to work together. So maybe if we can just start by all you guys introducing yourselves, and then we'll kind of go into some history of the show.
I am Michelle Helin, co-host of the show, married to this guy here.
Yeah, Art Helin, co-host and married to my better half over here.
Brad Jones, I'm the editor for Own the Season TV.
Excellent. Well, cool. Thank you guys for being with us. We got Mitchell here too, avid hunter as well. So I think we should have a good discussion.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Still an amateur, but avid. Well, we're all amateurs.
Yeah.
We're all amateurs.
Yeah.
We're all just out there having fun.
Right. Yeah. There's always more to learn. So if you could just kind of talk quick about kind of how you got into starting the TV channel and stuff like that. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess.
It's probably more you,
Yeah, it's
really.
so. I mean, to kind of try to condense this as fast as much as I can. Back in the early '90s, actually earlier than that, I did a lot of competition archery shooting, and me and one of my really good friends from back home in Dodgeville, we used to travel and go to all the IBO shoots and all the big, the worlds and stuff. And I picked up a sponsor for a bow that they'd call me and said, "Hey, would you like to have us sponsor you to go shoot?" I'm in my early 20s and thinking, hey, if I don't have to pay for a bow and I can go and shoot this bow all over, yeah, I mean, why not? And so I actually started with him traveling around, and I met a gentleman there, Bruce Hudala. Actually, Brett Whitty was the first person. He worked for Rep Group, Hudala and Associates, which was Bruce Hudala. And through them, I met Miles Keller, and anybody in the whitetail world pretty much knows, who Miles Keller is. And so after shooting for a while, Miles says, why are you not on the hunting end of this? With the success you're having and stuff, why aren't you on the hunting end instead of, doing more of the competition stuff? And so I kind of went that route and ended up more on the hunting end. And my buddy Jeff actually now owns a pro shop in Dodgeville, and he took that end of it and stayed in the tournament stuff. And so as I got more and more involved in that, I started traveling more and doing more seminars and things for people. And one day I happened to be on an airplane headed to do a seminar in, I believe it was Dundee, Michigan, and across from me was Ralph Ciancerulo. I didn't know Ralph from the wall back there, and Ralph, obviously, he didn't know me, but I had a hat on with a hunting company, and he struck up a conversation. Says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to a seminar at Cabela's grand opening." He says, "Well, so am I." He says, "Hi, my name's Ralph Ciancerulo." I said, "Art Helin," and we started talking, and so we talked pretty much the flight going out, and talked going there, and then we happened to be on the same flight coming back. And he says, "Have you ever filmed?" And I said, "Well, we filmed." It's me and my buddies just filmed, but not much. He says, "Well, my wife and I are actually thinking about starting a TV show." This is in a year or two. And says, would you be interested in filming and doing stuff? So I went home and talked to Michelle about it, and they were only an hour and
They're
20
like,
minutes.
yeah, less than 2 hours from us. I think you'd done a little filming for maybe with Double Bull and maybe some other stuff kind of here and there. you
Yeah,
know,
I'd
in the
done
meantime, too.
little stuff here and there. You know, like I said, more friends than really into the business end of it yet. And then, so her and I went down and sat down and talked to Ralph and Vicky, and we decided, yeah, let's do it. And so they started Archer's Choice in 2000, and so we had started filming for them in 2000, and we were with them
Like 8-ish.
8 years,
8-ish years, I think.
8, 9 years, something like that. And then, you know, we had young kids, and there were things, and my sponsors and partners, I like to call them, were going one way, and his partners were trying to go another way. So we just kind of split on good terms. I mean, we still talk, we're still good friends, but we split, and I kind of went our way and kind of got back in my roots of photography and things. That's what I was really, you know, did, and I've got a degree in it. And so then I kind of got out of the filming stuff, and then one day a friend of mine just says, hey, you know, you've got the background in this. He says, let's start a YouTube channel. And of course, back then, you know, everybody and their brother, that's when YouTube was just starting. And we're like, yeah, let's try this. So him and I got together, and he was going to edit some of the stuff, and then I was going to use some of my knowledge to start this. And I said, you know what? I started doing research, and I'm not a huge fan of YouTube. And I mean, there's a lot of good things on YouTube, but there's also things when it comes in the hunting world that aren't the best. And so I said, well, let's just kind of use that as back burner. Let's skip that and go right to like Sportsman's Channel or MOTV, something like that. And so I had talked to a couple of the guys there at Sportsman's Channel. We decided, yeah, we're gonna go this route. And we were supposed to start, I believe, in 18. We'd been doing some filming in 17, getting ready for it, and then in 18, when things were supposed to come out, then I was in an accident, not a tree stand accident, and
But a fall.
and broke my back in 7 places and cracked my sternum and screwed up a couple other things. And then we had other health things pop up in 20 and 21, and so things were just kind of snowballing. So right away in 18, when this was supposed to get released, we just kind of had to put it on the back burner and say this isn't. And thankfully I had a lot of friends in the industry because I've been in it so long. I'm like, what do we do, because we still want to make this happen down the road? So I talked to my buddies at Deer and Deer Hunting, and Dan say we're starting a new show, and he says, what are you doing with your footage? I said, you know, we can't run ours because I can't get it edited. I can't do what I want because, you know, one, with my back the way it was, we weren't getting the footage we needed. Plus, with the concussion I had, you know, I couldn't look at a TV, I couldn't look at a computer, I couldn't do anything for quite a while. And so he says, you get me all the footage and I'll run your footage on our new show, but basically give you guys all the credit and start promoting your show through this. I was like, hey, all right, if you'd do that for me. And he did. And so that's where it all kind of started. Then the next year we finally got, you know, her and I, like I said, we had some other health issues come up, and we're like, what do we do? And she just says, you know what? She looked at me one day and she says, there's always going to be something. Let's just do it. And so we did. And we tried to edit some stuff ourselves, and our friend that was filming with us, he did some stuff, but then it got too big. And
How did we find Brad?
Well, I was doing some stuff for a food plot
Oh,
company.
that was it.
And you were doing some
Yeah.
seminars
Yep.
with the food plot company, and you called me, I think, a year before we actually got together and said, hey, would you be interested in doing some editing? And I was doing some stuff for another show at the time, but that was starting to end. And I said, sure. And I didn't hear anything. And like a year later, he calls me, and we talked, and it's one of the best moves I've ever made working with Michelle and Art. spectacular people. So,
Yeah, we're sure lucky to have Brad too.
Yeah, he's been a lifesaver and goes
Does a great job.
above and beyond a lot of times, and so it's great, and it's, you know, and I think that's what's helped the show continue and get better each year, and you know, watch our viewerships and watch our numbers, because, you know, we go to a lot of different places now because there's so many different avenues out there as far as, you know, do you want linear, do you want streaming, do you want different things, and I get confused enough trying to keep, because we have 10 people, you know, or 12 people that are filming for us, trying to herd them sometimes is kind of like herding cats, and it gets a little difficult, you know, and trying to get all this footage and organize everything, and I try to get all this stuff done as much as I can prior to, and then him and I work together quite a bit, and you know, it's like a every morning phone call. It's, if there's no phone call, like one day
we know something's going on.
Brad called me one day. It's like we hadn't talked for like 3-4 days. I'm like, hello. I pick up the phone. He's like, just checking on you. He says, I haven't heard from you in a couple of days. He says, you must be busy. I'm like, dude, I'm swamped. I'm getting killed over here. So
They're work husbands. They're work husbands. Yeah.
it's all good. Michelle hasn't called you, told you I'm dead. So we're good yet. So,
I don't think people realize how much behind the scenes work there is to put 13 episodes out. You know, they're 22 and a half minutes long, and you would think, oh, that'll take you an hour or so. Well, yeah, it takes you about an hour or so just to get your notes jotted down and to get on the editing. So,
and then you take social media on top of that. You know, that ties right in with the TV show now. That, you know, there's so many different things that make the wheels turn that people just don't really realize, and they don't see how much work is, you know, behind the scenes. And there's days when I know she gets frustrated too. I mean, she's not only does she co-host, but, you know, she's works at the hospital. She's an RN.
I got a regular full-time job.
Yeah. And so she's, you know, an RN, but she's a staff educator there, RN, and so she's there all day long, and then she comes home, and I'm like, hey, honey, I need, because there's certain things that I'm just not. You know, you tell me to go shoot something or go put an arrow through something. Hey, I know how to do that. It's, you know, I know how to look at footage and things like that, but when it's certain things on a computer, I'm like,
I call myself the unpaid office manager.
if it wasn't for Michelle, I don't think the show would go on. I'll be honest.
Brad's really helped because the keeping
Brad's
it
helped.
organized, the organization. Because like you said, like 13 episodes, but that's, you know, it's on multiple platforms, and there's a little bit of rework, or like there's the deadlines to make those other platforms too, and so there's just a lot for those multiple quarters.
Yeah. Ben runs our media department, obviously, for everybody who doesn't know, and so I think you can probably speak to a lot of that too, a lot of that behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, before I got talking to you guys, I never really realized how a show like that goes on the air, because, you know, I kind of assumed there was a production team from the Sportsman channel, whatever channel that you happen to be on, that would come out and do all your filming and all your editing, but that is clearly not the case. So I'm sitting there thinking now, okay, not only are you sitting in a tree stand trying to hunt, you're also worried about whether or not you're in focus and like running your own camera and stuff. So
The network just takes our money.
Yeah, right.
And gives us the deadline.
Yeah.
And like some of them, like maybe have like a base camp where they, you know, put all the different deadlines and different, you know, assets that they need, and, you know, things that you have to submit for different things for them to put it on the air. But, you know, they're not.
And depending on what show it is, what you're hunting, you could have 20 or 30 hours of video, because you need your B-roll, your main footage and everything, and then getting the right clips together. And Paul and Art, I was like, we need one more clip. And
I mean, it's a minimum of 3 hours of good video.
yeah.
A very bare minimum of 3 hours of
Well,
video.
and that's too, like, growing up watching all those different shows and stuff. I probably watched episodes of The Choice that you guys filmed, you know, growing up. I I remember when.
It'd be fun to see, look back now and be
You
like,
look
oh my
and
gosh,
you
there
see,
they are. That
haven't
was
changed
them.
much. I'm just a little gray.
Right.
That was
Well,
them. Yeah, we
I
were
see
much
some
younger.
of those.
Well, I remember the first time like RJ was on their show.
Aw,
You know,
baby
like
RJ, yeah.
and him and I are roughly the same age. You know, I'm a little bit older than he is, but just I remember watching all those growing up, thinking, man, like there's times where I've sat in a tree stand for 6, 7, 8 days in a row and not seen something or not seen anything that I want to shoot. So it's like, just even then I was thinking, man, they probably film a lot of stuff that they don't use or can't use. Because this show is only 30 minutes if you look at the TV, but it's only like 21, 22 minutes of runtime. And so it's like, man, to sit for, 90 hours to shoot a deer and condense that into 22 minutes, like that's gotta be tough.
It is, and you have to be able to tell the story. See, that's part of the problem too, is, you might go out there in 5 minutes, you're into it, and that deer walks by and you shoot it, but now you don't have a story.
Which is good, right? But like.
So it's like that footage, and so now I have to piece that with a whole nother show because we have to create a story somehow.
Right.
It's all about the story and all about, and people are like, well, they're talking to me about their laptops, our team, and they're like, oh man, my laptop's like 10 years old and I'm almost full on foot. And I'm like, really guys, I got, the footage that I have, and the same with Brad, because of everything I need, to get him number one for the show, plus the stuff that I'm trying to build for social media or trying to help him build for shows, different things. So my computer's 3 years old. I have 3 20 terabyte hard drives in it, and all 3 of those are just about full. I need to have a new computer built. I believe she's going to start building next month for me. So like every 3 years. And they're like, 20 terabytes? I'm like, yeah. And I said, that's, and you think about that. So that's 60 terabytes. I mean, granted, one of those hard drives is strictly for photo work because I still do a ton of photo work. But all the rest of that is everybody's footage for the last 3 years that we built TV shows with. So you think about that, and you have 40 terabytes of footage just to create, 39 TV shows?
Yeah.
Almost a terabyte a show.
Plus a few,
Right.
yeah.
So you think about that and say, well, that's really not, a show really is that much in 22 minutes. You're like, yeah, think about that when you've got less than,
It's big files.
and that's the other thing. Yeah. And so people don't realize that, and they don't realize the cost involved in that either. What it costs for those computers and editing software. On Premiere Pro, they saw it on the wall. They saw it coming because it used to be you could buy their footage for, $400, or not their footage, but their software for $400, and you had Premiere Pro software. Well, now it's a monthly subscription. And every single month it's,
And then everything you tag on is
yeah,
more.
and then everything,
You want After Effects and.
So I'm paying I think it's like $115 or $120 a month just for editing softwares.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, it's crazy, but it is what it is. But yeah, so I mean, that's how over the years, how we kind of got to where we are, and looking back, I remember Ralph, there were meetings in his office, and I remember Ralph saying, hey, he'd have the conversation with some of us that would be there, and he's like, you guys want to start a show? He says, go have at it. He says, it's a lot of work, and it's just that, because, and that necessarily wasn't me, but I remember some of the guys, well, it can't be that hard to start a show and stuff. And now I'm looking at it, and there's times I look at her and I'm like, man, careful what you ask for and wish for, because it's a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but it's a ton more work than people think it is, especially when it's that hunting season, because it's not, we go out and we might hunt from sun up to sundown to get that footage if we're having a hard year, and we need that footage. Then we're trying to book hunts in December, January, February, we're trying to do all these other crazy hunts, trying to get enough footage. But on top of that, then we have to get our normal stuff in with our partners, if they're asking for social media stuff, if they're asking for photos, video work, TV shows, all that stuff. We need to get all that stuff done while we're not sitting in a tree. So that means if I'm there from sun up to sundown, thankfully, you know, during the rut, you know, it's dark at 5 o'clock at night,
Right.
but you come home and you may be working till 9, 10 o'clock at night, and, you know, not even see her. Like when we were really busy here not too long ago, you know, I'd get up, walk from, because my office is in my house, so I go from my bedroom and right straight in and walk in there in my pajamas or whatever and pair of slippers and go right to work, and that's what I do 7 days a week, you know, and not even on Sundays. And you know, her mom comes over on Saturday mornings and I take a break for coffee when she comes over, but there's been days and where's Art? In the office working where he is every morning at this time, you know, and that's just, it's part of it that people don't see. But
Well, you either do it or you hire it out, and then that's just more expense,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, the people that like, that say, oh, it can't be that hard. I encourage them to just grab a camera and try to self-film a hunt.
Oh, that's extra hard.
That is, and then talk about, oh, it can't be that hard, because that is probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do, is get that deer in frame, in focus, execute a shot, and like trying to do all that, just trying to get a good shot off sometimes is almost impossible. And then add your own camera work to it, good luck.
And then do that 13 times a year.
Right, and make episodes.
Right.
yeah, we've
Or
self-filmed.
double, I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, you really have to have a story told well to have one harvest or one hunt take up the whole episode. It's often 2 hunts.
Yeah, very rarely do we
episode.
have one hunt that.
It's gotta be something special,
take up. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
To have,
One this year, I think it's got 5 hunts on it,
Yeah.
4 or 5 hunts, because you know there's just no story there. So it's,
mean, sometimes
we
those
make
are-
our own story and then
Right.
pack it
Yeah.
full of hunts.
those might be like, you know, turkey hunts, or maybe like doe, rifle hunts and doe, you know, doe management kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's gotta be a pretty special hunt to have a whole episode devoted to just the one.
And we've done the self-filming thing. I mean, I've done it. It's, you know, but her and I do a lot of filming. You know, I'll film for her, she'll film for me, things like that. But tell you what, that camera has saved some awfully big deer over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Some awfully big
When
deer.
you
Yeah,
have-
You know?
where you can
When you
see
don't
that you've
shoot.
got a shot, but the camera doesn't, or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Or vice versa, or,
Yeah.
Right.
you know,
It's too dark.
It's
for
too dark
camera
because the
light?
camera,
Yeah.
yeah.
because it's still
you're-
legal.
Yeah, your actual
Right.
shooting time might be 20, 30 minutes after that camera's got light, and you've got a booner standing in front of you, and you can't do anything about it, because you gotta get it on camera. You know, yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
And
all
I've
of the above.
seen people, you know, they're like, oh my God, really, I would have shot it. I'm like,
I mean, yeah,
Producers-
you could to put it on the
You
wall,
could.
but that's not how the bills are paid, that's not how
but
the
we're
sponsors
producing
are
a
happy.
TV
That's-
show.
Right.
That's the
Right.
difference, is
Right.
we're, you know, like, I had a guy this year on social media complaining about us, shooting turkeys over decoys. You know, he's like, oh, you're this and that, and I'm like, okay. He says, can you kill them without a decoy? I'm like, absolutely. So I've done it, you know, I've
doesn't
I've
hunt
guided
turkeys
turkey hunting
with decoy?
forever, right?
Yeah, but it's better,
But-
it's better TV if there's a decoy.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's exactly it. I said,
Interesting.
you
Right.
gotta understand something, sir. You know, my response is, you have to understand something, sir. I said, we're in the entertainment business. That's what TV is.
Yep.
TV is an entertainment business, or we are a promotion company. That's what we do. We either promote our partners, or we entertain people with hunts.
Yep.
And I said, with the decoys out there, it gives more time for those birds to come in and interact than to just stand there, walk through a frame and get shot.
Yep.
This way you can film them. You can also use it as a learning tool for people,
Yep.
you know, so they understand
Yep.
different body language with turkeys, how they interact with each other, different things.
Yep.
I said, that's what it is. It's an entertainment business. It's not that we're just out there to kill something.
Right. Especially when you're turkey hunting, because Tom's put on such a show.
Yeah.
When they're so theatrical when it comes to their mating ritual. And for them to interact with a hen decoy and strut and puff around and do their little dance and you know, sometimes, I mean, we've all probably experienced it, you're trying to get a Tom to come in and he may have a live hen with him, but he'll hold up at like 80, 90, 100 yards with that other hen. And he's trying to entertain both. And it's this elegant song and dance that you go back and forth with on this Tom to try to get it to come in. And that's what makes the good TV. That's what's entertaining to watch.
Right.
Not just there's a bird in the ditch, shoot it. You know,
Right.
that's
Right.
that's no fun for anybody watching. So
Well,
I totally agree with you guys.
With as many turkey as Michelle and harvested, Art called me this year and said, "You won't believe this. I got this footage. There were some jakes, and one came out dominant, and all of a sudden they started making noises and pecking at each other, and the dominance changed
Yep.
with that bird."
That was my
That
hunt.
was your
The
hunt.
longest 17 minutes of my life.
Yep.
And
Because
Art's saying, "Don't shoot, don't shoot."
I'm laughing. I'm laughing. I wasn't going to actually. We decided
Okay.
early on, but I am not good about waiting and watching to see what they do with the decoys. They get in range. I'm usually shoot
down.
blasting,
Yep.
and he yells at me every time, and it's because like things can happen. Like
it can
we've had
change in a second.
like coyotes are thick out there, and you can have a coyote come in. We've had like mobs of jakes like chase toms away, like, and so I just don't take the chance, right? Like it presents a shot, it's in range, it's clear of all the other birds, I'll shoot it. And so, I'm usually not one to just let them, let things play out at the decoys. But we had decided that I wasn't gonna shoot a jake this day. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna shoot. But then they wouldn't leave. They just stayed there and stayed there and stayed there. And so we were watching their behavior, which was very interesting this whole time. And then we kind of then had a show, right? We kind of had a story
Right.
playing out in front of
Yeah,
us. So then it's like, and I'm not about, like, I am not too proud to shoot a jake. It was just like day one,
Right.
Right. But then it was like, oh, now we have a story. This would make a good show.
Right. And you probably learned something about their behavior. It's
Yeah,
educational
right,
for you.
right.
There's
Yeah.
something that you'll deploy maybe in a later hunt.
Yeah,
That like, hey, these jake, I remember the one time I was hunting and these birds reacted this way.
Yeah.
So then you change the way you hunt them and maybe you become more successful.
So then-
That's the cool thing about it too.
So then after they were out there all this time, like, okay, I guess I'll shoot one now, and then, shot one that went clear of the other one, so I wasn't shooting more than one. And then you get what happens after you shoot the turkey, which then you really kind of start to see some
Right.
dominance
Some
play.
dominance changing.
happening.
Yeah, like instantly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
One unique thing about their TV show, it's family oriented. So there's a lot of husband and wife teams and a lot of husband and wife and kids. And that's really nice to see the kids grow up, learning from the parents. And those are quite a few of the shows that we have each year.
Yeah, we've got a good group of people, all from, nearby towns around us. It's been really fun to see Avery. Like, she's probably one of our, I don't know if she might be the oldest kid too, but she's been with us the longest for sure. And to watch her evolve as a young hunter and get used to being in front of the camera too, and kind of like bossing her dad around a little bit and like taking charge. Yeah.
I heard she's quite the sharpshooter, the
She
kill
is.
machine. Yeah.
She is, and she practices a lot. I mean, I think that's the one thing too. Like, I think Art probably gets some comments on social media about, kids hunting young and shooting, and she'll make some long shots come rifle season. But what they don't see and realize is the practice time that she's putting in with her dad,
Right.
on the range or.
Yeah, because you look at the guns that they're using, they're nice custom guns. They've got all the ballistics written on the stock. They're hand loading. They know exactly what they're doing.
All right. So yeah, I guess if you guys had to think back and like, what is you said you rarely get one hunt on an episode, but if there was one story that was so good that it merited its own episode, or just, I guess, what's the most memorable hunt you guys can think of?
Well, for myself, I mean, there's a million of them. You've been doing this for so long. There's a million of them, and we do it so much that I really, my enjoyment now really comes from watching her or helping other youth or other hunters become successful, and I enjoy that more than really anything anymore. I don't mean this in a bad way, because I like to grow old, mature, and big deer. So I don't get super excited as like I used to. And I wish I did over some of these whitetails. But I see, some of the old whitetails, I'll still get excited and stuff. But so I always look kind of outside the box as far as things. I mean, but when you find that one certain whitetail, and a couple years ago I had a buck named Lefty that deer, I had years of history with that deer. And I had the sheds off that deer, and I watched that deer, and I watched his home range, and I did so much, work, land management work, and all this stuff around, trying to get on this deer. And I finally had this deer that I thought I had him pegged. And it was probably the first deer in a lot of years that I actually had been this excited about a deer, right? And so I was hunting every morning and every night. And because I'd set the property up, I knew how to hunt this deer. And I got in there and I hunted this deer every day. And I'd seen him twice from the stand, never had an opportunity. And one night her and I went and we were sitting in the food plot. The winds were right, everything was right where I could finally get in that stand, because I'm like, if he's not here, he was showing up on camera on that food. And so I said, if the wind's right, we got to get up there. And we got up there, and sure enough, that deer showed up. And
with a good amount of daylight left.
yes,
too,
a lot of
really.
daylight. So the footage we
Which
knew
was
gonna
shocking.
be-
What time of year was it?
September.
Early
It was
fall,
the
early
first,
season.
So he's still summer feeding patterns?
yes.
Okay.
And so we're, he was hitting a mock scrape in the mornings, and so I was hunting him in the mornings on this mock scrape because I could get to that. And then he was also hitting that in a different mock scrape in a food plot in the evenings, where he was feeding on his summer patterns yet. And out came a 3-year-old, and then a young little 1-year-old, and then he came out, and I remember sitting there and I'm watching this deer, and I looked at him like, it's Lefty. And she's filming this, and I don't see this look on her face like, oh my God, that deer's really big. Like I'm like this, and I'm like,
I'm filming all the other deer
yeah,
out
I'm
in
like,
the
are you
field.
on Lefty? And she's like, I'm like, to the right. She turns kind of, then you can see, and she's like, huh. It's 176 inch 9-point deer.
He looked
right?
like
And
fancy,
so
like
that's a
just
big
the
deer.
big
so
deer.
so he's
yeah.
a Boone and Crockett 9-pointer, right?
Right.
And so he comes out and he finally gives me the shot, and I put the shot, and
I forgot about this.
then everything kind of falls apart real quick, because so he's quartering away, and he even spins a little harder when I shoot, and I feel like it's just perfect, right? And it's a longer
Good one.
shot, but I was confident in it because of what he was doing.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody on social media is, because when he takes
Wait.
off,
No, you can't. He'll give away the punchline. So when I'm filming and he's hunting, and you see this animal, and I know it's something he maybe is going to shoot at, like, I get so nervous. I get so excited. I'm probably more excited than he is. Mm-hmm. He gets excited, like, after. Like, I'm the one that gets, like, shaky, before, like, while this is happening. So even when I'm filming, I'm just like, oh my God, and I don't want to screw up, right?
yeah,
And,
I'm on record, right?
yeah, exactly. The red light is on, right? Right.
I'm there, buddy. I'm double pointing.
What I usually do is, like, you leave it on and you let it run,
Right.
and you never turn it off. So he shoots, and I film it until I can't see it any longer. And then I pan to him, and he's like, did you see blood? Did you see blood? And I'm like, yeah, there's blood, because, like, there's a body part, like, flapping. Like, you could see, like, something, like, flopping out the hole. I'm like, yeah, there's, but I'm not going to say that on film. But I'm like, yeah, there's blood, and then we get done. And so we end up, having to, find it. It is getting dark. It is dark by the time we find him. And his lung had blown
So when I went through
back through the entrance.
yes, I went through, and he was quartering. I went right behind the back rib, quartering up into the top of the shoulder, and it hit the diaphragm. And when that broadhead, I shoot a big 2-inch cut, and I hit that broadhead, or when the broadhead hit that diaphragm, the back pressure actually, when it stretched out, blew the lung back out through that hole.
So it's like flapping as he's running.
And it looks,
Looks a little gruesome.
it's gruesome,
Yeah.
it's disgusting, it really is. And So as this thing is running away, and she's like, you know, and I'm thinking, what the heck? Well, it didn't go very far. You know, it looked worse. Well,
It's
then
just
of
downhill,
course,
yeah.
you know, we played some of that on social media. Well, I haven't played again because everybody and their brother's an expert, right? And they're, oh, that's its guts, that's this, that, you know, horrible shot. Well, and I'm like, whatever, dude. It went like 80 yards and it was dead. And actually, when we went to air that on the Sportsman's channel, never forget the higher ups said, sorry, but we can't play that because it was pretty gruesome, right? And I said,
And
all
maybe
right.
questioning the shot.
Yeah,
Maybe they
he
thought
was
it
questioning
guts,
the shot
I
too.
don't know.
And I
Yeah.
said, I'm telling him. And so they went back and they had their stuff and they went frame by frame and everything else. And he's like, it is. That's part of what's long. He said, I've never seen that ever. And I said, I've never seen it. I said, I've never seen it since. And he said, tell you what, he says, it's long. You're going to catch a lot of flack for it because it doesn't look like it at first in fast motion, but I'm not going to let you play it in slow motion. You can't replay it. You play it once and you're done with it. I said, okay, I'm good with that because it's really tough when you kill 100, when you kill a booner with your bow to not be able to air that then when everything else. Right. And so, you know, but that to me was probably one of the most excited hunts or because there was such a backstory and everything came together finally with a lot of work and determination. So yeah, that was really.
How many years did you chase that deer for?
He was, I think, 6.5 when I killed him.
Okay.
So I really started, you know, it's like 2 years old when you can really tell what a deer, you know. And a lot of people say, well, it's all their antlers and blah, blah, year after year. And I'm like, not really. Last year we had a deer that was a 5-year-old deer, must have been one of his offspring that was 3. And people are like, oh, I'm seeing that deer. And I'm like, that's not that deer. I said, you put the two together, there's 40 inches difference in antler size, you know, plus the one has a different throat patch than the other one. And that's what I tell people all the time. When you're looking at stuff, look at markings. Look at maybe their ear is, you know, got a big scar or there's a notch out of it or it's cut or they got a scar on their face or double weight throat patch, something different. And that's how you can tell year to year tracking these deer rather than antlers because they might get hurt. And so all of a sudden they might throw a goofy antler one year. And you're like, it might be that deer.
I know all about that.
Yeah. And so, you know.
You probably hunted him for the 2 year. Did you hunt him?
I hunted him
year
for,
before?
well, I didn't hunt him really. At 5, he was still a good deer, but I really, you know, I kind of hunted him, but I didn't hunt him that hard because I had another deer that was actually better than that deer. You know, it was older, more mature, and it was a better deer. So I didn't really hunt him that hard. But when he showed up at 6, I mean, he blew up. You know, he went from 145, 150 inch deer at 5 years old to, you know, 175, 180 inch deer, you know, at 6 years old. And so then, okay, now he's got the age and he's got the antlers and not all deer do. You know, some deer, they might be 7 years old. I've got one this year that's either 7 or 8. That we call Fatso. I just got a picture of him the other day. And that deer, if he scores 100 inches, he'd be lucky, you know, but he's just, he's on his downside going downhill and he'll be a great deer to try to get out of there, you know, so.
We'll need help hauling him out of the woods.
That's why
There's a reason he's called Fatso.
Seriously, this deer is, he will probably push 300 pounds on. Yeah, he's a big old Wisconsin deer. Yeah.
Well fed.
Yeah, well fed. So, but
Nice.
yeah. And you had one that you were just talking about. That you
Our Illinois hunt.
Your guys'
Right?
Illinois hunt? Yeah.
Our Illinois hunt. Yeah,
Tell
so
us about that, Michelle.
we got a place in Illinois that we hunt with our friend George. And, you know, I think one thing that is a challenge for us, whether we're hunting at home or we're going on an outfitted hunt is, you know, we're usually trying to both fill tags in that same amount of time, 4-day, 5-day, 6-day hunt. It's hard enough to fill one tag on a property that you don't know or aren't used to, but we're both trying to fill tags. And so we were down there, and the property is set up. There's some tree stands. There's also a lot of elevated blinds, and the elevated blinds are mostly set up for the crossbow hunters and their gun season down there. So they're positioned so they got the narrow end is kind of where a lot of the shots are, and Art definitely can't draw his bow back in those. And it'd be tight for me sometimes, depending on where the deer are showing up. Sure. And the winds weren't right for the tree stands, I think, on that trip down there either. So we were hunting the elevated blinds and decided that we were, gonna take a crossbow. We'd taken our compounds as well as the crossbow. So we were out there, and I was hunting. We take turns usually, like a morning night, and then flip and morning night. So I was up, and Art was filming, and this buck pops out into this little food plot, but it's really kind of hugging the edge of the field, on close to us. I was off to my right, and I could see him well enough, but there was branches from the woods, blocking my view and blocking a shot, and didn't appear like he was going to turn around and go back out more into the center of the plot, away from the woods, but was feeding towards the wood line. And, you just don't want to let that opportunity slip away. So, he can see better. So to even get the crossbow up, he was like, okay, you can move. And then I would, bring it up. And then, then I could, he moved enough where I could, kind of see, and I decided that I was going to hand the bow over to him because I didn't want to let it get in the woods. So I said, next time he puts his head down, I'm handing the crossbow over to you. He's like, what? I said, I'm handing the bow to you so you can shoot it. One of us has to shoot this deer. Yeah. So he puts his head down, I pass the bow over. Next time he puts his head down, he slides the camera over. And so the camera's running the whole time because we don't want to double punch, and
right.
Plus maybe that's kind of cool too, is seeing the bobble,
Yeah, right.
So then I get back on it, and he gets the bow on it, and he makes the shot and shoots the deer because he had an unobstructed angle from where he was.
I thought you were going to tell me that as soon as you handed him the bow, the deer went back to the
I know. That would have really been something too, right?
Give me that.
Oh, man.
Walked out in the middle of the field, and she said, no, I got a shot. No, you don't.
No.
Too late.
That was like the end of the season down there.
That was.
Because then we all met up at the ATA.
Yeah.
Like a day later.
Yeah, because they all thought I was crazy because I brought the antlers to the motel, and we were in St. Louis, and of course, being downtown St. Louis, you walk in with a 160-inch deer, and these guys.
We had the luggage cart,
those are
stacked, and then there's
so
a set of antlers on top
we
of the
go to
luggage
check
cart.
in, I turn around and look at the bellboy, and they're all standing over there looking at the antlers and holding them, and so that was kind of fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah. Well, so what have you guys been up to recently this year? What have you gotten under your belt so far?
Oh boy, a lot of turkey hunting. We do a lot with youth, special needs, and this year started out with mostly our learn to hunt. We had to take a few years off because of COVID and stuff, so that had been shut down. So I did a learn to hunt for turkeys and guided a young gentleman on his first ever turkey hunt, and we were successful pretty quick and early. Did a lot of scouting, and happened early in the morning, which is always nice because then you can take them to breakfast and get your coffee and warm up, because it's usually that's either the end of March or first part of April, and so it's cold, and so we did that, and then we took off and
We went to Florida. Yeah. Our friend George introduced us to a guy down in Florida who does gators and hogs. He also does a lot of waterfowl hunts, turkey. Is there anything else? Was that it?
Africa.
Well, yeah, Africa. He's got deer, but I think the deer hunting he does for himself.
Yeah, the deer.
Yeah. So we went down and I had never hunted hogs. So that was new for me. We had hunted gators 12-ish years ago, kind of bow fished them out of Lake Okeechobee. This we did from the shore, either a spot and stalk. I guess all of it was spot and stalk. We could do either compound, or we could rifle hunt them as well. So that was fun, something different to do it that way. And we each got a hog and a gator.
We each got a hog and a gator, and made plans to go to Africa next year and go over there and have some fun. And then we came back home and went right back to turkey hunting. Started bringing in turkey hunters, and actually season ended today, I believe, but I'd seen a few, but it's food plot season, so my, turkey hunting has kind of disappeared, and editing season, why we're here, because we're airing now, so we just, last week we finished the last episode.
Yep.
And so that's, we're done with all those, and they're out the door, so now it's just, I'm building a lot of social media stuff, talking to a couple other channels, trying to figure out, about airing on those, and different editing things, if it's worth actually going to those channels or not. And then, like I said, food plots, I spent a lot of hours on a tractor the last couple days, mowing clover fields and putting in food plots, and deer, turkeys, wildlife, not only just to hunt them, but for whatever you do. I mean, it's a lot of work and a lot of time. And so we've been doing that, and now I think
Summer's kind of our
summer's
time off.
I'm gonna hopefully next week get out and do some fishing, and hopefully another week or two, the rest of my
We did go to Lake Michigan. Speaking of
Yeah, we
fishing,
did.
we did go over to Lake Michigan and did some salmon and trout fishing
For
on
the
the
show?
Sheboygan.
no.
Just
No,
career person?
yeah, that's the one thing. Like
Yeah.
fishing is still like the one thing that we don't film usually, and we do for fun, just to take the pressure off and have fun. We have filmed once or twice over there, and I think we filmed a show in Green Bay, or did some filming in Green Bay once. Usually we'll just, put a GoPro type, camera up and mount it on a rail somewhere and let it go, and maybe do an opener and a closer and kind of see what we get. And I think the one we did in Sheboygan, we were doing it to kind of help them out to a little bit of a promo show.
I think that's
I caught the biggest fish.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the same. Well,
Just naturally,
the
right?
fishing guides, like it's,
Really is.
they'll be like, if you want to see a big fish landed, you got to go fishing with Michelle, because like
Yeah.
we take turns, like whoever, this time we let our friend go, our friend Jim.
Yeah.
He got the first fish because he'd never, gone salmon fishing. So we're like, okay, you're first up. Well, the first fish on, he gets it. It's a nice coho. So then I was gonna go, then him, and next fish on, and the guy sets the hook, and he's like, this is a Laker. And they're like, of course it is. It's Michelle's turn. So I reel in the lake trout.
She gets a big old Laker.
And then the rest of the fish are all cohos, the rest of them.
It's just the way it works.
We caught 9 or 10 fish.
So,
Yeah, so they all, both that fishing guide and our friend up in Green Bay, he's always like, was Michelle coming?
yeah, please.
Because she does catch the biggest fish, because we were at the Milwaukee Sports Show a few years ago, and I'm walking around, and there's an empty booth, and here's a big poster of Michelle.
10 by 10.
Yeah, huge lake trout, and I'm like, okay, you gotta go over there and see this.
Yeah, that's,
crazy.
now, wait a minute here. Now, I do over her, the only thing, I do have a couple walleyes better than her,
I'm not saying you
and I
can't
do
catch
have a muskie that's way better than hers, but other than that, when it comes to like smallmouth, I mean, I'm catching like 5-6 pound smallmouth going, hey, 6 pound smallmouth is a great
Big
smallmouth,
smallmouth.
right? What'd she do? She reels in a 7-10. I'm like, really? I don't know.
It's just total like luck. It's total luck.
Skill.
So someday, if she's fishing and there's an accident on a boat,
You have knocked
I
me out
had
of the boat. Wait, you
I
have.
had nothing to do with it.
He has
Publicly.
knocked me out of the boat before.
Yeah.
No,
He's over here, good.
I did fall out of the boat once when he was driving.
Those big lake trips are fun if the seas are not too bad.
Yeah.
They were rough, dude.
I went on one for my bachelor party last summer and ended up puking during my bachelor party, but not for the reason that I think I would.
Yeah.
It was,
that's not fun.
it was pretty rough out there, but yeah, we caught a lot of fish.
We had
It's
to
always
end
fun.
early.
Yeah, we had to end
This
early.
Oh,
time,
really?
yeah,
Yeah.
because they were getting to be like, close to 5-foot waves, so
Yeah,
we ended early.
If you've never been on the Great Lakes, I don't know if people fully understand. It's basically an ocean.
Right.
You can't see the other side.
know.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
When you get in that swell and you see water on both sides of you,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, you
Yeah.
do not feel like you're on a lake
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Especially
And we've
Superior.
we've had 5-footers on Green Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We fished in five.
Yeah,
And we were
the-
catching fish.
the Great
It was
Lakes are-
difficult, but
They're deadly if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And they never get warm. It's the other thing people don't understand about the Great Lakes.
No.
It's like they don't really ever get above 52, 53 degrees. So even in July and the dead summer, it can be 100 degrees outside and you can die of hypothermia if you fall in.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a they're dangerous. You gotta be careful out there.
Yeah, it's serious.
So basically that's kind of what we've been up to, some fishing and hunting, and now I'm waiting for the rest of my suppressors to show up, and as soon as they do, then I'm gonna go down and got a bunch of rifles I want to sight in and do that this summer when I'm not fishing and get those all set up for fall.
Sweet. So we've had our fun time swapping stories. What made you want to reach out to us and kind of start thinking about suppressed hunting? Was it just kind of popularity on the rise, or you've been thinking about it for a while? Do you have any experience hunting with suppressors, or kind of getting into that?
I've a couple of the guys on the team have hunted
Yeah.
suppressed. I've shot suppressed in the past when I was working, as doing some bodyguard work and stuff. We had to use some of that. And one of the biggest things though, as I get older and I deal, not only myself, but dealing with young kids that we deal with all the time. And this was part of the biggest reason I think that I got into it is, I'm still a big guy, but I love to shoot long range, but I get sick of getting beat up. You're shooting a 300 or, you're shooting that stuff all day long and you're just getting beat up. And on top of that, my hearing's going because, I went through the academy and a bunch of other stuff and shot, and then worked with an auto body too for a while. And so I lost a lot of my hearing. And now there's certain tones that really bother me, and rattles just drive me absolutely crazy. A little rattle, like she can't even hear it, and I'm like, I'll pull the truck over and I'm like, I gotta stop this rattle because this is gonna drive me absolutely insane, right? And it's the same way with, certain gunshots, certain calibers, just like make me flinch and hurt my ears really bad. And so I really started looking into going suppressed for a couple of those reasons. One, for the hearing, I also use, walkers now to help with that, but then you put those along with the suppressed, man, that's unbelievable. But then on top of that, the recoil, taking that 300 and these others, like Avery, we were talking about Avery earlier, and, she shot a deer on film 2 or 3 years ago. She shot that deer like 400 yards or 300 and some yards, and as a 300 PRC. I'm thinking, this kid's like 9 years old, 10 years old, and she's not a big girl, she's a little girl. And I'm like, most people aren't, most adults are going to cringe at shooting 300 PRC at that, but it's suppressed. And because it's suppressed, it's cuts that recoil so much. And then being on a bipod, she didn't have a
really
problem.
tames it.
Right.
Yeah,
And so that really got me thinking. I've back in the old days, suppressors were different. When I went through school or through the academy and different things. But now, I believe there's a bigger need for those out there. And that's part of the reason also is getting a hold of you to help, spread that word and stuff that, it's not just about, oh, I've got a suppressor, but what are the advantages to it? Saving your shoulder, saving your hearing, all these advantages to a suppressor. And that's the biggest thing is, I like shooting. It makes it a lot more fun to shoot.
Yeah,
I think that's the big reason.
Yeah, anything you can do to get the next generation, because I think it's just getting harder and harder to get into hunting as a kid. Whether your parents aren't doing it, you live in a city, the world's just getting smaller. There's less land to do it on.
That's
So
the
I
big
think,
thing. I
yeah.
mean, I could talk for hours on the land side of things and the deer management side of things, but as you guys know, especially the TV industry is wrapped around one animal, and that's the North American whitetail, and it's becoming a rich man's game to hunt those animals, and that you're getting locked out of land because of leases, and public land is overhunted and stuff like that. And so, yes, I 100% agree. It's becoming harder and harder to get into, and then you add the intense recoil of a Magnum cartridge to hunt these animals or to hunt Western animals. That noise and the recoil, it can be scary for young kids, and trying to convince them that it's okay. Pain's temporary. Look, kids don't believe you when you say that. and they get scared.
Wait a minute here. Pain is, so my coach, I played, college ball, and our coach would always say, pain's temporary, pride's forever, suck it up, buttercup.
Yep.
I was like, you were 100% correct. If I was fighting.
Back when you were 20.
Back when I was 20, I'm like, you're right, man. This pain, no problems. You get punched in the face, you get stepped on, have a few stitches, break a few bones. Give it a week and you'll feel fine. Yeah, until you get into your 50s. And then all of a sudden, all
Everything
that pain
hurts.
comes back.
Back. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden that temporary pain, it's temporary for like 30 years.
Right.
Put it that way. So that's your temporary stage is 30 years. Yeah. Then once you hit 50, all that temporary comes back. Even though it's not broken anymore, now it's arthritis where that was broken. And so it will come back, so don't always believe that saying.
Right.
Yeah, well, then to the advantages you guys were talking about. I mean, I can't tell you how many. When we launched the Sportsman, we had a customer. Well, I'll tell two stories quick. We had a customer email in and just say like, "Hey, I want to share this with you guys. My son got his first buck using one of your Sportsman cans, and he actually got his first doe out of the same herd because he was able to get the shot off. Everything kind of sat there, and he was able to get his second shot off. So that's a huge benefit. And then two, we had another customer email in who said, I've been trying to get my son into hunting for years. He's too scared of the gun. He didn't like shooting it. He didn't like the sound. And now he's like excited to go hunting because he doesn't have to worry about that. So like you said, there's massive advantages that I think for the next generation are super helpful, and even for kind of people who've been doing it for a while, if that pain's coming back, you want to take away some of that recoil. It's a big help.
I think in like making it more enjoyable, right? Those kind of fall into enjoyable. Also, like to your story about him shooting, the two deer out of the same herd. Like, what if your first shot misses?
Exactly.
Or isn't as good? You might get a shot, a second shot, where otherwise you wouldn't have.
Right. Well, and that's even more important when you start talking about Western hunting. If you got an elk on the other side of the canyon, he might be 450, 600 yards away, something like that. Pretty good chance you're going to miss that first shot. I mean, you can do all the hand loading in the world, you can have all the calculations in the world, but if you're in Wisconsin and you change your elevation by 14,000 feet, and now you're trying to shoot across the canyon with crosswind you don't see because it's going down the throat of the canyon, you've got an issue on your hands. And if that animal can hear that first shot and has been hunted before, he's probably going to move on and not give you another opportunity. But if you're suppressed, you have that much better chance of a successful follow-up shot. Or sometimes you got to shoot an elk 2 or 3 times. They're tough. They're big. And sometimes you got to put a few rounds into them to keep it ethical. And that's where these things are super important.
And even being more accurate because you're not anticipating that shot. Or cringing, starting to flinch ahead of time, which definitely, the kids can do, but any of us can, when you're anticipating that. And so I think the suppressed will help with that too.
And you can spend more time at the range. right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the animal
Not getting your
manufacturers
butt
will love
kicked.
us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's all
And
right.
it's just way too much fun. I think that's well, and I think that's part of it. It's a lot of fun, and two, it just feels almost more, in a weird way, natural. Even though you're adding technology, it's like bringing you back into like, okay, now there's not this massive boom every time I want to make a move. I think that's kind of the appeal to bow hunting too. Is just the more natural aspect of it. You're not disturbing nature. You know, you're not scaring other deer in the area by a loud gunshot going off, so other hunters can have more chances at stuff. You're not stressing out I think you've mentioned that to me multiple times, is stress is a huge factor.
It is a
deer
huge,
development.
huge factor in deer development, and if you can educate hunters on being suppressed and, you know, diminishing that stress on the herd, that's big. I mean, there's still hunting pressure and stress from the people being in the woods and making noises and changing stuff, but you know, and then add you know, opener on top of that, freaking war going on in
Right.
the woods, and
It's pretty stressful.
yeah, it's pretty stressful. I mean, you add all that threat, and then you add all that noise, and it just
Yeah.
becomes overwhelming for a lot of different species.
Yeah.
You know, so
And it does, and I mean, the other thing, I guess part of the other thing that really got looking into this too is, you know, we're doing more and more predator hunting, more raccoon hunting,
Trapping.
you know, and then dispatch that animal. But even, you know, the coyote hunting, like you said, the stress on the herd. Well, now they're here and shooting all day, and now guys are going out there and shooting all night long at coyotes. That deer doesn't know what they're shooting at, and what they're, you know, are they shooting at me or not? And and now that it's
and they're
suppressed,
getting pushed when they're not normally getting pushed.
right?
Yeah.
You know, and that adds a lot of stress, especially this time of year.
Yep.
A lot of people like to coyote hunt and environment hunt this time of year. Well, guess what's happening this time of year? Fawns are dropping.
Yeah.
And so you add that stress on the doe. They get up and take off. Well, the fawn doesn't, because it's not supposed to. And then you know, the mom has to leave the fawn for longer than it wants to, or in an area where it doesn't want to. And then all of a sudden you've got predator issues now. And yeah, it's a good time of year to coyote hunt because they're hungry, but you've got fawns dropping. So you know, you want to respect the herd in that way too.
Right. And it's saying, like, so if, you know, when we're trapping raccoons, and we do that because of predation for turkeys and stuff, eating eggs, and they're one of the worst for that. And our biggest thing is, because of her having to be to the hospital, is a lot of times we'll run the trap line, and it's legal to shoot raccoons at night, right? But we'll be running that trap line at, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning, and the sun's not, obviously it's dark. Well, you know, we've been
Kind
there
of want to be
before.
nice to the neighbors.
And so all of a sudden we're out there, and you got a coon, and you got to dispatch it. And so even a 22, if it pops loud, you know, I've had the neighbors call and say, hey, you know, somebody's out at your place hunting today at 5 in the morning. You know, and
Right,
usually it's
right.
bow season at that time, right?
Right, right.
And so the last thing I need is for somebody, and we're friends with the wardens, and they trap with us and stuff too, but is somebody calling the warden and say, hey, you know what, he shot that deer last night with, that's one great advantage to us filming stuff because it's all on film, but
Right.
you know, so it's just something that we're not waking the neighbors at 5 in the morning when we're trying to dispatch a raccoon. You know?
Right.
So
Right.
there's so many advantages to being suppressed, and that's, again, one of the biggest reasons that we looked into them and reached out, because of educating people on those processes and where we can go with it.
Right. Right.
One of the long range places that we shot this year, it was mandatory that you had to be suppressed.
Yeah.
So,
I think you're going to start to see that more and more as they become easier and easier to own. I think you're going to see that a lot, because that's very common in like European countries.
Yeah.
You're the jerk if you show up without one.
Right.
You know, because now everybody's got to put ear pro on. You know, I recommend shooting with ear pro anyway when it comes to a rifle caliber.
Absolutely.
But you know, because exposure levels and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that'll become more and more common. Mandatory uses of that stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely become pretty common in sort of the military tactical side of the industry, but hunting, I think, is people are starting to seriously consider it. People like yourselves as well are helping with that. But
Yeah, and then you see companies like Savage They came out with their Accu can or whatever, because the Accu trigger, they have the Accu can. You're starting to see these common brands that Ruger, I think there's partnered with Dead Air.
Yep.
You're starting to see these common brands that people associate with the hunting industry, and self-defense and whatnot too, but you see them coming out with stuff because they see it too. They see that, these are going to become more popular, more hunters are going to be able to use them, as long as they're affordable, which is where the Sportsman obviously was hatched. But it's going to become a very common piece of equipment soon.
Yeah.
And the process you guys have in place of getting it to come to your house, I mean, it's pretty painless.
Right.
There's not a lot that you have to do.
Yeah.
Fill out a few forms, make a phone call, and boom.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're living somewhere like middle of Montana and you don't have a gun shop within 4 hours of you.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to go and do the forms and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Well, I guess kind of just to wrap up quick, any really cool hunts you guys have coming up that you're excited about? Kind of talk about what you got on the docket for the show this year.
I think this fall's pretty normal stuff, nothing too exciting or unique. Anything that the team's doing that's...
I don't think they drew, I don't know what
Brad's the guy who
who
draws
knows
the
what that guy
more
drew,
exotic
but,
stuff.
He'll come in at the end and say, "Hey, I'm going on a bighorn hunt or
Yeah.
something."
Or I guess you guys would even know, like, what's...
we do have a couple of guys going. Scotty's going on a moose hunt. He's going to Yukon on a moose hunt. I know a couple of them drew Kansas, which is getting hard to do anymore. But a lot of whitetails.
And then it'll be our Africa hunt next year. That's July, August.
Probably take her to Florida for an Osceola hunt.
Oh, yeah.
I'll
I don't have an Osceola yet, so...
Probably do another alligator.
back down
and
there.
some more hogs.
Does that complete the Grand Slam for you if you get one? Or
No, I don't have Miriam's either. Yeah.
What are you guys going after in Africa?
He wants to go after Cape Buff.
I'm gonna shoot a Cape. If I'm going to Africa,
Yeah.
I'm shooting a Cape Buff.
We'll do a Cape.
It'll probably be one of the few. I might shoot one other one, but I've always wanted to shoot a Cape Buffalo with my bow. I've always wanted to get up close, personal, and do that. And
wait a couple arrows and
Stare down death.
So
it was hard.
Yeah.
yeah, I've always been
And
that.
hear the backup gun go off.
Right.
I've always been that idiot, that. How high is that before you hit water? Well, I don't know. Let's see. How
Cliff
deep's the
jumping,
water?
yeah, cliff
I don't
diving.
know. We'll find out.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd climb up there and I'd jump off and go, oh, it's deep enough. I didn't break anything. But if you hit right there, you'll feel the bottom. So,
Right.
so I want to
Otherwise,
do that. Otherwise, I think
All the little, deers and antelopes.
take the rifle over with us and trying to figure out all the different legalities and whatever to try to get the suppressors into Africa. And how soon do we need to do that, or are we going to have our guide? Is he going to take some over with him? How are we going to do that? That's thankfully that's far enough away that because I definitely want to do it suppressed and with the ones that we do shoot with the rifle. And like I said, here we've just got our deer, and I was hoping for a few other things, but they all kind of fell through, and so we're just gonna kind of run with what happens this fall, and you never know. I mean, all of a sudden, something at the last minute could show up, and
You should draw a bobcat tag.
yeah, I should draw a bobcat tag this year, and so I'll probably do that.
Is that a bow hunt too?
No, I'm a trap.
Tree.
Okay.
Yeah. He could, theoretically, he could shoot one during archery.
Yeah, if I have one come through during
Right.
archery season, yeah.
You could smack it.
Actually, the last time he had a tag, we were deer hunting. I was hunting, he was filming. And the night before, it was the day before bobcat season opened, we had one trot by at like 5 yards. Day before
Pretty good.
season
Day
opened.
before.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They don't give out too many of those tags, do they?
It's getting tougher.
Yeah.
It's getting tougher. So
It's like every 3 years down here.
I think
I'm gonna put in for Fisher. I don't know if I'll draw yet,
yeah,
but if we go up north for that.
That's an interesting looking animal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're cool. They're different. I like going up there with her when she's doing that.
So we try to do some of that.
We have
Grouse.
stuff.
I think we're gonna do some grouse hunting this year too.
Grouse is fun.
Nice. We have fishers come in all the time and hit our bear baits up north.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you see them, you're like, especially low light, and it comes in, you're like, what the hell is that thing?
Yeah.
Because it's just so weird looking compared to everything else.
Right.
You're like, oh, it's a fisher. Man, that's an ugly animal.
Yeah. Don't want to tangle with it though.
Right, I don't know.
You're gonna do either like a
Trying to find
cow
something
elk
out
hunt
west,
or
yeah.
a antelope hunt, something like that out west, and because he's having a 7mm PRC built right now. Let's suppress
That'll be
that
fun.
and go out there and see what he can
Nice.
put a bullet through.
Mile with that thing.
Yeah, PRCs are cool around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much wrapping up our fall.
Cool. Well, where can our viewers and our followers find you guys?
Go ahead.
All right. We've got, there's a couple different things. You go to Own the Season TV for our Facebook, Own the Season TV for Instagram. As far as the TV show, second quarter, we run on Pursuit, linear. And then third quarter is Pursuit Up and Carbon TV. And then quarter 4 is also Pursuit Up, and the other channel we were on just folded. Got an email the other day after 13 years,
Yeah.
14 years.
Yeah.
He decided that he went to work for another TV company. So we've been in talks. I've been in talks with a couple other channels right now, and so hopefully we will be on one more on fourth quarter yet, but for right now, like I said, Pursuit is right now linear and then streaming. And on the streaming end of things, the nice thing with streaming we've got a YouTube channel too. We don't put as much on there, but we do have one. And we are slowly building that, and that is also, actually that one is Art Helin Outdoors, to find that. But the Own the Season on the streaming end of things is nice because like Carbon, especially Carbon TV, because you can go back all 5 or 6 seasons
On demand.
on their VOD demand.
Yeah.
And so you can binge watch if you want.
Nice.
Watch everything, catch you up until now, because we'll start airing, like I said, third quarter there, and we air once a week on there. Like right now, we're 3 times a week on Pursuit. So
Okay.
Then catch our podcast too, sponsored by Griffin Armament. I appreciate working with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're super excited to be working with you guys too, and of course, Wisconsin companies. I think that helps a lot. But you guys have been great, and we're very excited to kind of grow with you guys and honestly get a lot of feedback from you guys, because kind of the whole hunting suppressor thing is. I mean, we've been doing it for a little while, but it's sort of new for us. So I think we have a really good offering with the Sportsmen and the Explorers even. So hopefully you guys like them and they improve your guys' hunt as best they can. And we can keep growing from there.
Yeah.
will they improve my accuracy?
That actually,
No guarantee.
there's only so much they can
Right.
quarter inch.
It's like there's not a broadhead out there to fix a bad shot. So
Right.
Yeah,
True story.
Yeah.
True story.
just like there's not a camera out there that can make me beautiful.
right.
If you find one, I need that same camera here, buddy. So yeah.
Well, Michelle, Art, Brad, thank you guys so much for driving over and coming to visit us and do the podcast with us. Really appreciate it, and we're excited for the future with you guys. So
We're excited too. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you.
excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, well, thank you everybody for listening, tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Be sure to check out Own the Season TV on video on demand, linear, wherever you guys can find it. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.